The inspector enters, introducing himself as Gould. Arthur says he's never heard of Gould before, despite being an alderman, Lord Mayor, and a member of the bench. The inspector states that the two have not met. Arthur offers the inspector a drink, and he refuses, saying he is on duty. The inspector tells Arthur that a girl named Ava Smith has committed suicide that evening, after swallowing disinfectant. Eric cries out at this, and Arthur says it is difficult news to hear. The inspector asks Arthur if he has heard of Ava Smith. Arthur says the name might be familiar, but he isn't sure. The inspector shows Arthur, and Arthur alone, a photograph, and refuses to show the picture simultaneously to Eric, noting that questioning multiple people at a time would create confusion. Although Arthur is perturbed, he lets the inspector proceed. Arthur says that he employed Ava in his factory and discharged her in September 1910. Hearing this, Gerald offers to leave, but when the inspector says he knows that Gerald and Sheila are engaged, he asks Gerald to stay. Gerald, agitated, remains. Arthur tells the inspector that he dismissed Ava in a straightforward case. He argues that he can't accept responsibility for what has happened to Ava. The inspector counters that Arthur has initiated a chain of events leading to Ava's death. Eric interjects that Arthur was saying just before the inspector arrived that men must look out for themselves and their families, but not all society. Arthur describes why he dismissed Ava. She was the normal wage, but joined with other laborers to ask for a raise of 3 shillings a week. Arthur would not grant this, saying it would cut into profits. The inspector asks Arthur why he refused, and Arthur objects to the idea that the inspector would question his business practices. Arthur says that the workers, including Ava, went on strike, but it lasted no more than 2 weeks, after which the laborers were taken back on at the old wage. Ava, however, was not offered her job back, as punishment for initiating the strike. Gerald announces that Arthur did what he had to do, as the owner of a business. Arthur asks the inspector how he gets along with the chief constable, a man with whom Arthur is friendly. The inspector says he does not see much of the chief constable. When Eric asks why Arthur couldn't grant the raise, Arthur accuses Eric of being lazy. Eric responds that they do not need to speak this way with the inspector present. Sheila enters the room, and wonders what's the matter. The inspector tells Sheila that a girl named Ava Smith, aged 24, has killed herself, and Sheila is appalled to hear it. Sheila is also shocked to learn that Arthur fired Ava after the strike. The inspector begins questioning Sheila, who says she does not know anyone named Ava Smith. The inspector tells Sheila that Ava Smith went on to work at a clothing store called Millward's. Sheila admits to having shopped there before, and asks to see the Ava's picture. The inspector shows Sheila, and only Sheila, and she gasps. Arthur becomes angry that the inspector has upset Sheila, and Sheila asks the inspector if he knew all along that Sheila had interacted with Ava previously, a question the inspector does not answer. Sheila admits to having gotten the girl fired from Millward's. Sheila was shopping there in January of 1911 and, after having tried on an unflattering dress, she noticed that the girl, Ava Smith, seemed to find this funny. Sheila became enraged and said she would not return to the store unless the girl, Ava, was fired. Sheila is mortified to hear that her actions might have contributed to Ava's death. The inspector tells the room that Ava worked at Millward's under the name Daisy Renton, rather than Ava Smith, which is why Sheila did not recognize her name.